Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is bigger. It's bolder. It's everything the first game was, but more. More systems, more immersion, more historical authenticity, more maidens to lie with, and more ways to get yourself into trouble. Warhorse Studios clearly took every lesson from the first game and applied it here, refining and expanding what worked while doubling down on their vision of a brutally authentic medieval RPG. But no game is perfect, and while KCD2 nails so much of what made the original special, a few things might not land quite as well, at least to me. That said, this video will reflect my own personal opinions, and despite spending over 100 plus hours exploring the lands of Bohemia, I simply cannot speak for all of its contents because here's the thing, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is big. Very big, and we'll get to that later, but suffice it to say, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is, for the lack of a better word, epic, and I strongly believe that if you were a fan of the first game, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will not disappoint. You take up the role as Henry of Skalitz, the son of a blacksmith and squire to Hans Capon, a nobleman that becomes Henry's close friend throughout the first game, and together they now journey with a group of soldiers to deliver a message to a noble by the name of von Bergov, in search of an alliance. However, it doesn't take long before their plans go to shit, and soon enough Henry finds himself separated from Hans Capon, and so you're free to explore the lands of Bohemia at your own pace. In the vast sea of things to talk about for KCD2, I think it prudent to begin with the performance of the game. And well, throughout my 100 plus hour run, my game has been running very smooth. Specifications wise, I'm running this on an RTX 4090 combined with an AMD 7950X 3D CPU, and 64 gigs of RAM coupled with a high-speed SSD, so suffice it to say, I wasn't expecting much trouble to begin with. As you can see here, my frames per second never dipped below 100, and the game has been running pretty steadily between 110 to 160 FPS, with the graphics maxed out and Nvidia DLSS turned on. There wasn't much difference with the DLSS turned off either, and I managed around the same number overall, even in the middle of Kuttenberg, that being the main city you'll be visiting. There are some pop-ins here and there, but nothing too noticeable, and my game started to lag now and then during the final act of the game, which I'm obviously not going to spoil here, but hopefully that'll be fixed in the final version of the game. Overall though, KCD2 is a gorgeous game, and wandering around the countryside gave me some of that Skyrim nostalgia where you just cozy yourself up into a ball and enjoy the world Warhorse has cooked up.
I'm feeling a bit peckish.
Speaking of the world, KCD2 is, as previously mentioned, a huge game. You start off your journey in the region of Trotsky, which pretty much serves as the intro to the game, and you later make your way to the Kuttenberg region, which, as far as I can tell, is twice as big as Trotsky. Now that isn't to say that Trotsky is a small map, it's also quite big, and you'll probably spend 20 to 30 hours in this first region alone. At least I did, and thankfully most of that time will have you occupied with one thing or another. So the size of the maps isn't just for show, and as they're based on real-life locations, it just makes exploring these areas that much more immersive, and I found myself constantly getting sidetracked from the main quest as there are so many curiosities to find and people to interact with.
The wicked girl got away, and the young man here helped her to escape. So, either you pay for what she stole, or I'll personally clap you in the stocks.
How dare you? I'm the son of the royal hetman, you scum. Show me the respect I'm owed.
Whether it be helping a shy girl learn how to dance to drinking with your enemy, side missions and encounters are extremely varied, and heck, some of the optional quests are really memorable, which is something I can't say for many games today.
I can do anything I turn my mind to. Got that?
Like what? Tell me.
Above all, I'm smart. I dare say I'm the smartest person I know. No offence, of course. And once, in Egypt, I even gave a sermon. Just like that. Off the top of my head. The women's knees buckled when they heard how wisely I spoke about corruption and fornication.
But we know a lot about that. Most of all, about fornication.
Now what's even cooler is that depending on how you choose to resolve various situations, the world will react accordingly, just like the first game, and Henry's reputation can swing one way or another. For example, if you've been a very naughty boy, then you risk getting captured, and if you don't have the coin to pay, and if your speech skill isn't the best, then Henry will become branded as a criminal, which results in people becoming more wary of you because of your brand.
Ah, shit. Ah, fucking brand.
Don't you dare cause any trouble.
This is just one example that shows just how deep the RPG mechanics go in KCD 2, and the dialogue system is equally impressive, with outcomes changing drastically depending on what you say and do, at least in terms of the side content. Unfortunately, this does not seem to extend to the main story as much. While your choices do matter to an extent here, it doesn't have the same depth, especially so after you reach the midway point in the game. And I guess that's one part that has disappointed me a little. Or maybe I've just become spoiled after Baldur's Gate 3. Now obviously this is really difficult to talk about without spoiling anything, but let's just say that the main story follows pretty much a set path for Henry, and I kind of wish that the game showcased your choices more, but instead you sort of get a summary of how Henry acted throughout the game after you finished it. So if you've kept your eye on this game for the sake of seeing the sprawling possibilities that might happen at the end of the game, then, well, I'm sorry to disappoint, but that's simply not what this game is. Don't misunderstand, the main story is actually really good, and your choices actually do matter to some extent, but the real strengths of KCD2 lies elsewhere, like in its side content, characters, the world, and its gameplay systems.
I feel quite hungry!
And if there's one thing you'll be doing a lot of, it's fighting. Now KCD2 uses an improved version of the previous game's combat system, but it's more streamlined, yet deeper. For example, a longsword has 4 directions to swing from instead of 5, and the Master Strike, which was pretty much a must-have skill in the first game, no longer feels as important as it did then, simply because feinting is more effective this time around. That said, I still suggest you learn this move as soon as possible because it will definitely make combat deeper and more fun. Now the Master Strike is not the only skill you learn throughout the game, as there are various combos and other weapon moves to discover as you encounter new people. Speaking of which, stuff like unarmed combat is much more fun than in the first game, with strikes, blocks, and movement being much more responsive and smooth. Hell, you can even go full-on MMA and grapple into a chokehold on your opponents, which can be invaluable if you find yourself in a pinch.
Someday I'll be the best around.
However, as this franchise is all about medieval combat, you're probably gonna want to try out some of the new weapon types like the crossbow or the pistol. Yes, guns have finally made it to Kingdom Come, but while they're pretty fun to use, they're also rather clumsy and takes a lot of time to reload, and the same can be said about the crossbow. While these new weapons are powerful, I just reverted to using the bow and arrow for the sake of simplicity and effectiveness, and I have a feeling that most players will do the same. Now, as I mentioned before, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has a wide range of activities to do, and one thing I kept coming back to over and over again was blacksmithing. Yes, KCD2 introduces a new profession that people have been asking for since the first game, and well, since Henry is the son of a blacksmith, I guess it just made sense to add this profession for the sequel. In the early hours of the game, you'll at one point learn how to use a forge, where you'll be able to craft your own melee weapons, which includes swords, longswords, and axes.
Iron steel! Come and take your pick! New wares!
Now these are, as far as I can tell, the only weapon types you can craft. That is to say, I'm simply not sure whether you can craft bows, crossbows and pistols, maces, or halberds, but at least I don't think you can, and I think I've explored most of the gameplay elements for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Armor crafting is not in the game either, as far as I can tell, but I'd wager this is something Warhorse is planning on adding in future DLC, perhaps in the upcoming Legacy of the Forge DLC that'll be out later this year. Still though, the blacksmithing profession is pretty enjoyable and introduces another way to gear up your Henry or to simply make money without resorting to being a criminal or killing bandits. Now, if you haven't played the first game, well, Henry can also brew potions at an alchemy bench, and as I mentioned in my preview, this profession has been streamlined as well. For example, you no longer have to manually distill your drinks, which removes one of the more annoying steps of brewing potions, in my opinion. Now, as you perform various activities such as brewing potions, forging weapons, or sword fighting, you'll be steadily increasing Henry's skills in these areas. And well, the array of perks you can learn are numerous to say the least, even more so than in the first game. And thankfully, most of them don't have any drawbacks, which was something that some of the perks in the first game had. This, in my opinion, makes leveling up your skills more appealing as Henry gets more and more proficient in that specific skill use, and it never feels like you're becoming weaker as a trade-off. Another element that I have to commend Warhorse on is the sound design. From the sound of swords clashing to the smattering of rain bouncing off of Henry's armor, the expertly crafted sound effects cranks the immersion up to 11. While we're on the topic of immersion, yes, there is romance in KCD2 with several possible love interests, all of them being characters that are crucial to the main story. And yes, there are some pretty explicit scenes you can unlock if you go all the way. However, YouTube would most likely age restrict this video if I showed any of it. Besides, that would be entering spoiler territory as well, so I'm just gonna leave you to your own imagination here. Now, I realize that this review has been pretty thin so far, but the thing is, I'm just trying my best here not to spoil too many elements of the game for you guys. Because here's the thing, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is like a 3-course meal that's best served fresh. And by me showing too much and simply talking too much about the game, I'd be doing you all a disfavor by making this video too long and too detailed. Because Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is about the journey and the discovery of its story, its world, its characters, and its various gameplay systems, and it would be a shame for me to take that all away from you. It has to be said that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is very slow and very deliberate. It's simply an unapologetic sequel in every way. So if you love the first game, then well, you will most likely love KCD2 even more. Now, if you're new to the franchise, you might still find yourself becoming a fan since KCD2 is much easier to get into during the opening hours than it was in the first game. However, if you didn't enjoy the first game, then I don't think KCD2 is going to change your mind. But to me, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an instant classic, and in my opinion, the best possible sequel they could have come up with. Are there things that I wish was in the game, like armor smithing and more extensive consequences to your actions in the main story? Sure. But judging the game for what it is and not for what I want it to be, I still think Warhorse Studios has made something special here. That is to say, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is an RPG triumph. Audentes fortuna uvat, my friends. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.